Hello, folks. Well, if you're over 30, you probably weren't born with a cell phone in your hand, so there's really no need to watch this. The purpose of this video is actually to simply introduce some old technology to you younger folks under 30 who may have never seen this kind of mechanical electrical equipment before. I'm presenting this video to preserve history, because if we forget it, we're going to repeat it somewhere down the line. Well, we didn't repeat this, but with the modern computer, we certainly improved it. And I'm talking about the Brother WP720D word processor that was manufactured in Japan. You see, I was writing articles for Model Aviation, Model Airplane News, RCM, and Model Builder magazines when there was no real way of sending the material through the internet. It wasn't invented yet per se back then or used like today, so we authors had to type our articles up and snail mail them with the real pictures to the editors. Well, before word processing computers and Word became available in PCs, I used this Brother. It was way less expensive than those early $1,500, $2,000 computers that you had to buy, and then you had to buy a printer. And since the editors also had to try to edit this stuff, it was great for doing the spell checking to them first and sending a nice, clean, crisp text to them. Most publishers wouldn't allow us to send faxes to them either. It just wasn't good enough quality. And we can save our stuff like this. You see, before the USB, that stands for Universal Serial Bus, was invented, we used magnetic disks. In my years with large systems at Burroughs, they were hard, solid disks and big tape drives. Later, when desktop PCs were introduced, we used floppy disks, which were actually floppy, thin, round magnetic tape material like this 5 1/4 inch floppy, which later became those 3.5 inch floppy disk standards. We now use no moving parts SD cards or thumb drives to save data. They're much more reliable. When I was working as an engineer at Burroughs, we were trying to develop bubble memory. It was liquid, but it never worked. Before I began building my first homemade Windows computers, which were actually pretty big and bulky and that I used with gigabyte motherboards and Western Digital drives, I had a 1984 Macintosh. It was black and white, and the big cool thing about it was it had a mouse. That was a real innovation. I also had a Commodore VIC-20 and a 64 as well. When Microsoft introduced Windows, and especially Windows 95, we all started building. That Windows 95 included the Ooga Chaka Baby, and we all went nuts. It was the first graphic information file. After that, I opened my computer repair shop, and the headaches began. I got calls all hours of the day and night. Dave, I can't find my taskbar. It's a blank screen. I can't get the printer to work. But as technology advanced and size increased from those early small 500 megabyte drives that we cloned, as soon as somebody came out with bigger drives so we had more space to do stuff, everybody got hooked. I had one of the first laptops. This is it. It's a Zenith. Of course, there was no Wi-Fi then, and it ran on this 14.4 modem. It was slow and heavy, but it was modern and a step forward. Here are a few pictures of it. You can see this hard drive here. It's small, but it was easily replaced and made bigger. Nowadays, my computers all have SSDs. That stands for solid state drives. I've installed them all with video cards with lots of memory and fiber optic internet connections with Wi-Fi. But in the beginning, we had modems, we call them modems, that only sent data at 14.4 megabyte per second over the wired phone lines. When US Robotics and Hayes came out with 56 modems, we thought we were sailing. But that was more like snailing compared to these days. How many of you remember the sound of the modem? If you picked up an extension phone in your house and heard something like this, you knew somebody was online. So some of the old timers will remember the early search engines long before Google. Ask Jeeves, Alta Vista, Lycos, Hotbot, and Webcrawler. And Netscape Navigator was the early favorite browser, and it's now called Mozilla Firefox. But in the interim of it all, I had this Brother word processor typewriter, which was pretty amazing. Instead of having a big computer and then a printer, I had a typewriter that worked like Microsoft Word with grammar and spell checking built in. It could remember words if they were not in a dictionary, as you're going to see, and as I type this up. Friendly. So if I go to suggestion, so I spelled friendly wrong. And there it is. We'll take that. I'm not typing so good with this messed up finger, you know, it doesn't bend. Goes this okay, but it doesn't bend. Wi-Fi, that wasn't a word anybody knew back then. Haze, I didn't know what that was. So we can add that to the dictionary. Came out, no, I can retype that. Came out. 56K, I didn't know what that was back then. I can add that to the dictionary. Okay, now I want to go ahead and print it. So I'm going to go ahead and say print, which is code, print. And it's now saying insert paper and press return. So let's go ahead and insert some paper up here. And press return. And away it goes. And there you go. That's the way we used to do it, folks. And not as fast as an inkjet printer, that's for sure, but it does come out absolutely letter perfect, beautifully. So thanks very much for watching this little bit of computer history. God bless and stay safe. This is Dave Herbert, the Night Flyer, and I'll see you next time.